out on the very end of the branches or the very tippy tops of the trees. So that's where they spend most of their time. And they'll just kind of pick through them, slowly. Yeah, and they'll eat about 10% of their body weight every day. Yeah.
I hope it doesn't poop in.
Well, that has never happened and will never happen because, like I said, when they do go to the bathroom, they have to go down to the tree.
Okay.
And he has two trees in his enclosure that go all the way to the floor, but there's only shavings around one of those trees because he only has ever used that tree to go to the bathroom every single time.
Where he's the same one.
So it is still hardwired into him that that's what he's supposed to do every single time, even though he's never even been in the wild. He was born and raised in captivity. And has, that's a characteristic that he doesn't need to survive, but in the wild he definitely would. So that's how God made all sloths, and so it doesn't matter what sloth is, what environment that they're in, they're still going to do that.
Amazing.
Alright. Well, it is right about time for us to switch over and do the VIP portion of the encounter. Let me get some things cleaned up right here real quick.
Do you want us to wash our hands or anything?
No.
Did you cook rice this morning, Michaela?
John did.
I was like, it's always so hot and stuffy in here. After, I'm like,
I know.
I can't breathe.
Scarlett doesn't sweat, so I'm like, are you okay?
She doesn't sweat like actually does it.
It's horrible. She overheats really easy.
Is it like a genetic?
Yeah, I like barely do, but as you grow older, obviously you figure out how to control that.
Yeah.
Clothes, this and that. But she's still learning.
Just nice up here. Little screech up there. All right. So
Did you get a video of them catching the pennycocks this morning?
No.
I didn't even know.
When I walked in and I saw them running this way and I was like, well, that looks like a good time. I said, probably went up to the house. And then I asked, I was like, where'd you catch it? They're like, is that the chicken house? And I was like, I mean, where else would a fox go?
I was grilling breakfast and I was watching the whole thing unfold. It was hysterical.
Oh.
I was like, oh, we got in the chicken coop.
Yeah.
Well, you asked me earlier what was in this basket. So this is the VIP portion of the encounter. So this is baby Dash.
Look at Dash is a baby.
Dash is, well, I'm so used to saying baby. He's a year old now. I still consider him to be a baby because he's been our baby for the past several months. Now we have Chloe and she's the new baby. But Dash is still a baby at heart. Something more specific that he does is that he will take a little corner of the towel and nurse on it like a little puppy would. And he finds comfort in that. And the breeder told us that if he still does that at a year old, that is probably something that he is always going to do. He does that as well as he will completely cover himself up with a towel or a blanket every time he sleeps. And that's why we have those towels in there because he every single time will do that. And he's always done that, yeah. And so Dash is an ambassador sloth, which means that he genuinely enjoys being held. And so this morning for the VIP portion, you're actually going to get to hold him for a little bit. And so we can swap back and forth. You can hold for a little bit, she can hold for a little bit. Do you want to start out holding or do you want her to start out holding? Where you want to sit? Yeah, if you want to sit in the blue chair, sometimes in the blue chair it's a little bit more comfortable to kind of slouch back down into it. And then I think that your shirts come down. So I just sometimes when how I was explaining earlier how they clamp down, that's their natural state. Sometimes they'll give you a little bit of a massage back there on your sides, and we'll go back and forth trying to find a comfortable spot for him to hold on to. But when we're holding the sloth, we have to keep in mind the fact that their eyesight is really poor, and so that has to be at the forefront of our minds when we're interacting with them. And when we're petting him, we want to do real slow and controlled pets like this down the middle of his back. They feed off of our energy, so if we're really slow like a sloth, they will be too. We're about to yawn, buddy. He always sticks that tongue out real long before he yawns real big. Was that good, yawn? And then you use one hand to support underneath his booty like that. And then he'll kind of rest his legs and his arms just like that underneath your armpit. And so he's going to twist around. He'll wrap his legs around your waist, just like he was on me. And just give you a little interested in this.
Is that what you're looking for?
And your torso is so small that you may be able to let him just sit down in your lap, so that you can have that other hand free to be able to pet him, and you can have that right hand to be able to hold this bowl. Whatever is going to be most comfortable for you. And he's comfortable as long as we're comfortable. Like I said, they do feed off of energy, and so they can tell if you're in an uncomfortable position and he's not sitting right, if you need to readjust and move him or whatever to be comfortable, then that works out for him too.
He's smiling.
So you can see Dash is a lot darker than Flash is. He's starting to kind of get that salt and pepper look going on there in the middle of his back. But when they're first born, you got a glimpse of Chloe over there. She's all one solid color, and she'll stay like that until she's about 10 months old, and that's when they start to get that sprinkly, lighter color there in the back. And then as they get older, by around a year old, he's still pretty dark. Dash has always been really dark, but usually by a year old, they've grown into their adult fur, and it'll be mostly white like that down the middle of their back. And in the wild, that gives that moss and algae a much better background to be able to show up on.
Oh.
So if they're real dark, you really can't see that green tint, but when they're light, you can see it a lot better.
He's getting my hairdo.
Is that good stuff, bud?
So do you bottle feed? I feel a lot of people around here bottle young people. You know, what's your bottle?
Yeah. A lot of the animals on the farm are bottle raised, but our sloths have been completely raised by their own mothers. They just don't nurse for very long. They only nurse for roughly 2 to 5 weeks. It depends on the type of sloth, if it's a 2-toed or 3-toed, and the gender plays a role in it too. So usually the males, like Dash, they'll nurse for just a little bit longer on their mothers than the females will. And a lot of factors play into it. The nutrition, like what's available, what's supplied to them in the wild. And the mothers, their mothers kind of have their own little tendencies for how long they'll keep the babies on milk. But mother sloths, they don't have the ability to store milk like other mammals do. Most mammals, they have a milk letdown reflex where they've had a lot of milk stored up. When the baby starts to nurse, they let that down and give that availability to the baby. Sloths don't do that because they don't want to make a whole lot of milk that could potentially not be used. Since they only nurse for a very short amount of time, they don't want to make, a certain amount, and then the babies wean themselves and not be nursing anymore, and then still have that milk that they've used all that energy to make. And so the mother sloths will produce the milk for the baby drop by drop as the baby is nursing. And so it's really, really cool the way that they do that to try to conserve as much energy as they can.
That's crazy.
Because in the wild, they're eating 95% leaf material,
Right.
and leaves are not very high in calories, and it takes calories to make energy or to make milk, do things like that.
Smile, baby girl. That no baby's face right there. Well, that's why I wonder, because like in the Immerse bottle feed, a little bit over there, but then I didn't know.
No, she's been completely off milk for a long time. They stay with their mothers, the 2-toed sloths, they'll stay with their mothers for anywhere from 3 to 5 months. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter. Again, it just kind of depends on the mother and the baby. Sometimes the baby will wean themselves and they don't even stay with the mother. So in the wild, a lot of times it'll work where if the mothers are traveling around and
He's out there.
they have gotten a taste of a different type of leaf, the babies will get that taste and they're like, well, I don't like the tree that mom is standing a lot of times. I'm going to go and find that tree that I got that taste, yes. And they will leave and then go to find that tree. And they do the same thing in captivity too. They all have their favorite foods that they'll eat more of, and they'll get pretty picky where they'll kind of develop their own diet like that.
That's wild. That's so early.
Yeah. But as you can see, Dash is completely content with this type of interaction because he was raised from starting at about a week old is when the conditioning process started. And the first several interactions were just the breeder going in there, petting the baby while the baby is on the chest of the mother. And the mother has went through the same ambassador program too, and so she's comfortable with being held. She understands the process. She's probably done it before. So it's nothing new for her. And so the mom's never stressed, therefore babies never stress. Like I said, sloths feed off of others' energy, and so they just understand that it's nothing really to be scared of. And so every day, for a certain amount of time in the morning, a certain amount of time midday, and a certain amount of time in the afternoon, the breeder will come in there and do that same type of interaction every single time. Because sloths are very routine animals, they really enjoy doing the same thing at the same time, at the
Which
same
it seems
way.
like with everything you've said.
Exactly.
Super typing.
Yes,
routine.
yes, very much so. And even with Flash, you know, in the mornings when I get here at 9 o'clock, I open up his door, I go in, say a few things to him, come back out and start chopping up his breakfast. And he knows pretty quickly, all right, she's here, it's game time, I'm ready for food. And he comes down every single time without fail. There's sometimes that he'll stay up in the top a little bit longer in the mornings, depending on how his night went. You know, we do have guests that stay up top, and so sometimes if there's young kids or something, he's had a restless night where he's, you know, had a lot of motion going on up there and things, then he'll stay up a little bit longer. It just kind of depends on his mood. But for the most part, they're very, very routine animals. They like to do the same thing all the time. And that's why with Dash and with Zoe and will be with Chloe too, they have a certain amount of time in the morning and a certain amount of time in the afternoon that they can have encounters, and we don't ever book them beyond that. So if Dash were to be completely booked for his entire day, he would only have 2 hours of encounter total. And even if somebody came in same day and was like, I want to do a sloth encounter, I'm here to book a sloth encounter, it would be too bad, you'll have to come back another day. You know, there'll be some places that book drop-in sloth encounters or no appointment necessary sloth encounters. You really have to do your research in places like that, because maybe they have more than 4 sloths and maybe they're not holding sloths. But how many times are those guys being, you know, just somebody in their enclosure all the time? So even though Dash would hold on to somebody for much longer than 2 hours a day, we do limit it just to give him time to be able to decompress, do what he wants to do, sleep, and just be a sloth. And that's really important to us, so we are very guarded of the time that we get to spend with them.
Are you their only sloth handler?
I'm the main one.
And you're Michaela, correct?
Yes, yes. So I've been here for about 4.5 months. But before that, you know, when we first got Flash, John was his primary caregiver for really the first 2 years of his life, because back then, 3 years ago, there were 3 employees, 2 of which being John and Donna, and so he was the one that was in here all the time working with him and getting him to the point where he's at now. So it's been a long road coming, but we're here now and it's pretty great. What do you think, Bud?
What made you get into this?
So my end goal is to become a veterinarian.
There you go.
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's degree at UT, and I applied to vet school right after I graduated and didn't get in my first time, which vet school is really, you know, real competitive.
That's pretty common though.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so with the gap year that I was forced to take, I was like, well, I don't have a whole lot with exotics, and I knew about this place because the large animal vet that does all the vet work for down here is the one that I was shadowing to do large animal. And so I knew about the place, knew about the people and most of the animals, and knew that they were looking for somebody more full-time to just work with the sloths, because that's really what you need with these guys.
Yeah.
You have to have one person or a very small group of people that know exactly what's going on with them all the time, know their feeding schedule, know their routine, and stick to that, because that's really what they thrive off of.
So are you still applying?
Yes, I submitted my second application like 3 weeks ago now, and so I should hear within the next week, I should hear at least from UT. Their interviews are October 23rd and 24th, and so fingers crossed I'll hear something within the next week or two. Got an email saying that they should hear back from them, you know, a week before interviews start.
What is it based on?
What?
Just vet school. I knew it was hard to get in, a lot of people the first time, but is it, I mean, like, is it based on interview and grades? Is it GPA?
Yeah, I mean,
work experience?
Yeah, it depends on the school. Some schools put more emphasis on certain categories, but vet school as a whole really like you to be very well-rounded, not just good grades, not just animal experience. They like you to have, you know, community service hours. They want you to be active, like extracurricular things, doing sports and stuff like that. Yes. So even if you're not, you know, interested in anything like that, you'll still, you know, find yourself doing things that you're like, why would I ever be spending time doing this?
Right.
And just volunteering for different things to be able to make your resume look better. And so I, of course, started working here, but then I also started volunteering for my animal shelter that's in Madisonville. So I was doing that on Mondays and then my day off, and then doing this. So hopefully, now I have an extra letter of recommendation for this next application.
Which will help too.
Yeah.
Look at that baby. Does it feel snuggly?
His eyes are completely closed.
He's like, I like your stand-all self. Follow their run.
He's been right at about half of our time. We usually we have 30 minutes with him, so we'll do like 15 and 15. But it's totally up to you guys if you want to hold for a little bit longer. We will just transfer them once. And so,
Yeah, mine
whatever
just
we
hold
transfer.
longer. This was for you, not me.
And he's sleeping.
I'll hold him the last few minutes.
Yes. He's got his eyes closed.
Yeah, he was just tired. Miss Chris was up playing all night long.
Oh, really?
Well, she had, her and her friend were playing a game on their iPad, and me and Brent were just like exhausted. So. Can you feel his claws on your back?
Sometimes when he's awake, he can roll the massage back and forth there.
Yeah.
Trying to find a comfortable spot, but it looks like he is out, down for the count. His eyes are completely